Clarissa, or The History of a Young Lady by Samuel Richardson, is a novel that portrays the events leading up to the ruin of a virtuous 18-year-old lady. Despite her chastity being compromised, Clarissa maintains her honor but not yielding her will. She must learn to overcome the grief that attends this loss or allowed to kill her. Clarissa, or The History of a Young Lady, is an epistolary coming-of-age story, teeming with examples of friendship, betrayal, honor, and pride. A display all that is good in humanity as well as all that is bad.
Mr. Lovelace makes his addresses to Clarissa, which is acceptable until her brother James returns from Scotland. At James' return, he and Mr. Lovelace duel and James is injured. Mr. Lovelace is forbidden to see Clarissa, but Lovelace convinces her to correspond with him secretly in exchange for his agreement not to avenge him against her brother. Clarissa visits the homes and retains of a great pressure to marry Mr. Solmes. She is punished and confined for refusing Mr. Solmes' proposal. Mr. Lovelace tricks Clarissa into eloping.
Clarissa's attempts to reconcile with her family are denied, and she is devastated by their anger. She agrees to marry Mr. Lovelace once they arrived in London. In London, Mr. Lovelace conveys Clarissa to approval and decides to try her virtue. He attempts many tricks to ruin Clarissa, but all fail. He introduces Clarissa to his band of varlets, and his best friend John Belford sides with Clarissa. Miss Who informs Clarissa to many bad rumors about Mr. Lovelace, and Clarissa determines to leave him. The rumors are refuted by Clarissa changed her mind. A fire occurs upstairs in the brothel in the middle of the night, and Mr. Lovelace makes inappropriate advances. Clarissa is very offended and escapes to Hampstead. Mr. Lovelace follows her and contrives to have two ladies impersonate members of his family and drag Clarissa back to Widow St. Clair's house. Mr. Lovelace doses Clarissa with opium and traps her. When Clarissa regains her senses, she runs away to Smith lodgings. When Widow St. Clair and horses at the brothel find Clarissa, they have her arrested. Mr. Belford has the charges against Clarissa dropped at Mr. Lovelace's request. Clarissa becomes very ill, and Mr. Belford develops a friendship with Clarissa. Clarissa believes her illness will result in her death and attempts to convince her family to give her a final blessing. The Harlows do not believe Clarissa is ill. Mr. Lovelace's family and Miss Howe attempts to mediate between Mr. Lovelace and Clarissa to convince her to marry him, but she absolutely refuses. Clarissa names Mr. Belford her board, and she prepares her will and plans her funeral. Mrs. Howe argues with the Harlows and rages against them for the way they treat Clarissa. Colonel Morden returns to England and attempts to mediate between Clarissa and the Harlows. Clarissa dies, and the Harlows agree to reconciliation too late. Clarissa's friends and family mourn for her and praise her virtue. John Belford serves as board, and with Morden's assistance makes sure that every article of Clarissa's will is completed. Mr. Lovelace's grief at Clarissa's death translates into madness. He travels abroad for his health. Mr. Belford plans his reformation due to Clarissa's influence. Colonel Morden threatens vengeance against Mr. Lovelace for the way Clarissa was treated. The two men duel and Mr. Lovelace is killed. The characters' fates reflect the way that they treated Clarissa. Her friends are happy while the enemies are miserable or dead.